This conference will now be recorded.
Excellent. We welcome you to Coffee with NAHRA. My name is Janet Borland, the Director of the Association for the National Native American Human Resources Association. For those with us for the first time, NAHRA is a nonprofit organization comprised of HR professionals and tribal leaders working for a Native American tribe. What began in 1996 as a few tribal personnel gatherings to work and learn from one another has grown into a national organization representing over 400 tribes nationwide. We are a team of professionals composed of an elected board of directors, an appointed advisory committee, and supporting staff members. Our board of directors are each employed by a tribe or a tribal organization. Our advisory committee are professionals serve in Indian country who the board appoints to serve 2-year terms. Areas of our advisory committee expertise include law, technology, education, philanthropy, and finance. We also have a staff of 2 that consists of dedicated professionals with years of experience in tribal affairs in Indian country. Today's Coffee with NAHRA, we're going to be presenting Kirsten, she goes by Kier, Schmieding of NPS and Wes Schevers from LeafHouse Financial. We're really humbled to have NWPS as a partner for NAHRA, and we're really excited about NWPS's wealth of information. Today, they're going to be talking about the target date funds have become to-go solution for generation of retirement savers. Account balance disparities across the country continue to widen. These saving gaps are frequently magnified with Indigenous populations are the focus. Like the wild land, food, and medicine gardens of the Indigenous people have tended for thousands of years, managed account programs, which is MAPS, which we'll be speaking about today, can help cultivate an intentional long strategy for retirement savings as valuable as life-sustaining resources for individuals, families, and communities. Before we begin, I would love to introduce our NAHRA president, Judith Wright. Judy, would you like to say hello to our attendees?
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Judy Wright. I am the president of NAHRA, which is the National Native American Human Resources Association, but it's so much easier to say NAHRA. I am glad to see so many people on the coffee talk. Many of us in our roles have the fiduciary responsibility for our 401k retirement plans at our facilities and on our properties. So I'm really excited to see this topic on and to hear different perspectives on the target funds or the maps. So I don't want to take too much of the time, but welcome and glad to meet you, Wes and Kirsten.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you, Judy. I wanted everyone to let you know too that today's session will be recorded and will be on the NAHRA YouTube channel by this Friday. So without further ado, let's turn off our mics and utilize your chat box, and let's all enjoy the session. And I'll turn it over to you, Kier.
Thank you, thank you. Hihani Mashte, everyone. My name is Kier Schmieding. My full name is Kirsten, but I go by Kier for short. My name is also Tequila Pewin, which means cares for them woman. I am Sikanju and Minikanju Lakota and a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. I was born and raised in, let's get started with the slides. Oh, well, there I am. I was born and raised in Kalapuya country, but today I reside in the historical homelands of the Caddo and Kickapoo, among other historical caretakers. And I found my way accidentally into retirement plans after being a teacher. I've been in the industry for about 9 years, and I really love this work because it's complex, and I love the people I get to meet, and it's really truly my honor today to be able to speak with you today about something about retirement plans. I'll tell you a little bit about NWPS, which is the company I work for. We record keep and administer retirement plans, all different types of retirement plans, including tribal plans, governmental and enterprise, which is one of the reasons why I'm speaking with you today. All of this slide is just to say that we support retirement plans and we're dedicated to excellence in that arena. I'd like to introduce my partner today. His name is Wes. Wes, go for it.
Yes, Kira, thank you so much. And certainly to the group that is on the call today, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone. Again, my name is Wes Schevers. I serve as the Vice President of Sales and Fiduciary Solutions for LeafHouse Financial out of Austin, Texas. Candidly, my job is to partner with individuals like Kira and NWPS in the distribution efforts of our institutional service, which is our 338, as well as our managed accounts. A little bit about LeafHouse. We were started in 2009, and we certainly consider ourselves experts in the 338 investment fiduciary space. In fact, we have, it represents about 95% of our core business, but we are actually the largest privately owned investment fiduciary provider in the industry based on assets under management. So we ended 2021 around 17 billion, and we're growing by about $1 billion a quarter. And we're the largest here respectively when it comes to plan size. So we serve as a 338 to roughly 6,000 plans. We have a national footprint, so we operate in all 50 states. And when it comes to our ownership, if you were to ask them who LeafHouse is, I think they would probably define us first as an investment, as a technology company that serves the retirement space. So we have a handful of proprietary technologies, 3 of them we're going to talk about today, which first and foremost is our GPA. And our GPA is our investment methodology that allows us to score and monitor funds that are within our 338 fiduciary product suite. And then the next 2 would be Reallocate IT, which is the investment portfolio technology that powers the managed account. And then most notably is the LeafHouse managed account program, or the MAP, which is what we're going to talk about today. So again, thank you for the platform. I look forward to the discussion and hopefully many questions that come through. Back to you, Kira.
Thanks, Wes. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about.
Hey, Kira, sorry. Real quick, I can't see the slides, and I know it looks like in the chat we got one as well. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no, thank you for letting me know. Sorry, let me get back to our spot here.
Kira, do you want me to turn you off as a presenter and do it again? Would that help?
Yes, please. I'm not quite sure what happened, why it's not.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Technology's only good when you need it, right?
I know.
I've had no problems in my hotel all week. I've had no problems with my Wi-Fi in my hotel all week, and then right before we got on this call, I called Kier because I couldn't get on Wi-Fi. Thank God it finally worked right before I got on.
Oh no. Okay, I think we lost Kirsten. Oh, there she is. Hi, we lost you.
And we're back. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, there you go. You're a presenter again.
Okay. Let me pop back into presenter view here.
There we go.
Okay, we good?
Yes, but you're not on presentation mode again.
Here we go. How about that?
There you go.
Okay.
There we go.
Moving ahead, we got there, we met Wes, we learned about LeafHouse, and here's what we're gonna cover today. We're gonna talk a little bit about what retirement looks like in Indian country, and we're gonna take a look at what data we can see that's most recent about what retirement savings look like in Indian country, and then we're gonna talk about how managed account programs can help close some of the savings disparities that we see in the data. And then we'll leave a little bit of time for questions and discussion. So jumping right in, pop a little something in the chat if you have seen Rutherford Falls on NBC's Peacock streaming network. Shameless plug, Regan is played by my sister, Jana, and their season 2 was just released this month. But what I love about this show, well, so many things, but also there are 2 jokes about retirement that made it into season 1 of Rutherford Falls. Unfortunately, could not get around the licensing requirements in order to share those jokes with you. But if you haven't watched it, or if you have watched season 1, I encourage you to go back and see if you can catch those 2 jokes about retirement. But simply because these jokes are popping up in content that's created by and for Indigenous people, lets me know that retirement could be on the brains of folks in Indigenous country. And so I want to know, what does retirement look like for both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people? And so I think it's sometimes easiest to take a view, a zoom out view first. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce you to some other members of my family. I'd like to introduce you to my grandparents, Dwight and Twyla Sowers, affectionately known as Uncle Bubs and Auntie Twyla. Uncle Bubs was born in Cheyenne River, South Dakota, and Auntie Twyla was born in Rosebud. Their parents moved to Chiloquin, Oregon, to follow the lumber industry. And so they were childhood friends and sweethearts. And my grandma went off to Haskell, graduated at 16. She was motivated to get back to be with my grandpa, and they were young and in love and Catholic. And so it wasn't long before they had 4 kids. My grandpa was a teacher. He was Mr. Sowers, a biology teacher, and he was the saver in the family. My grandmother raised the kids, and when everybody grew up, then she ran the Indian education program for the Eugene Springfield Education District in Oregon. And then she went to grad school, and I watched her get her PhD when I was in middle school, and it was amazing. But these 2 people are responsible for my traditional upbringing, and they're also my first 2 examples of retirement. As my grandparents approached retirement, they fell in love with that. They loved rom-coms, and they fell in love with that movie, Under the Tuscan Sun. And they talked about going to Tuscany and traveling and doing a road trip around there. And I really, really wanted that for them. But, my grandpa kind of, he retired, he became ill, and unfortunately he passed shortly after he retired. But he knew that my grandma would likely outlive him. And he knew that, because he was the money saver and she was the people saver, that there was no way he was going to stop her from continuing to raise nieces and nephews and help continue to support the family. So this is my version of retirement. Wes, do you have a story of retirement in your family?
Yeah, I'd love to share. So I would say our retirement story for the Schevers household is more so the lack thereof. And it fits in line with what, I certainly feel is probably most retirement savers in the United States, in the sense of dependent on or the false assumption that Social Security is going to be enough. And my family, both of my grandparents had no traditional retirement plan, 401k, anything like that, no pension. And both sides literally worked until the day they died. And when it comes to my parents, very similar in the sense where they haven't planned for retirement probably appropriately. And they're both in their 70s now, and they own a construction company, and they're still working every single day like they're in their 40s. So I would say very, very candidly, watching my grandparents, watching my parents, I intentionally got into the retirement space with a passion to not only prepare better for myself, but also help others prepare for retirement, to hopefully get out of this trend of not being ready to retire when that age hits us all.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That really hits. And I appreciate you bringing up the trends, because that's really where I want to go next. And there are multiple sources that we can go to see current trends in the retirement industry. I'm going to use one source today to share some of this information. And this study comes from our friends at Fidelity. And they do an annual study on the state of retirement savings. 2022 study follows up on 2021's, and they started asking some really specific questions around COVID in the last 2 year surveys. So this is a fascinating survey, and this is going to give us a picture of what retirement looks like across the whole as a nation. And they found some great stuff. They found some okay stuff, and they found some troubling numbers as well. But what I think is the most impactful part of this study, and what I'll be sharing with folks on the call today if they want to go and view this study, is that one of the most striking results that I saw was that folks who had engaged in the process of planning for their retirement reported feeling much better than folks who had not gone through a planning process. They felt more confident that they would have what they needed in retirement, and they also felt that more excited about the actually planning for retirement than thinking ahead about some other really cool things like a dream vacation or buying a car or buying a house. So the process of engaging in planning around retirement savings throws back some numbers that shows that a person's internal experience engaging with their retirement plan and with their retirement savings increases positive outcomes, which is great. But what does this look like in Indian country, if we can ask that question? But we all know we have problems with data, right? I don't know if you were watching native social media around our last election cycle, but as votes were being counted in our last presidential election, this meme was like wildfire on the socials. And I'm pretty sure there are shirts made with something else, and it's funny, it's a joke, right? But in all seriousness, we know that there are historical issues with our representation, or Indigenous data being represented in all sorts of data sets. And so it's a challenge to find information on current state. We can find some information, it's not easy. So if I did a little Googling, not in scholastic sources, but I did find some research from the Department of Social Security. And in February of 2015, they published a report that culminated some data collected between 2005 and 2009, and reported some really interesting numbers. So these are dated, but one of the things that I think is cool about this study is that they not only reported data on white folks and Black folks in Indigenous populations, but they also created a subset within the Indigenous sample size, singling out our single race relatives from our multiple race relatives. And not surprising, you can see that there is a disparity within Indigenous populations with respect to retirement savings. And what I also want to call out is, some of the fine print reported in this study at the very bottom shows the percentage of respondents with no annual income. The numbers are striking, and I think it really indicates that if these numbers follow a trend line through time to now, that this would really indicate that we're still experiencing a savings crisis in the country and as well as in Indian country. Now, of course, this was published by Social Security, so they want to show Social Security income combined with other retirement income sources to show an aggregate combination of retirement income. And so in the red column, we can see white folks, and the orange column, we can see Black folks. And then the dark blue column is an aggregate measurement of the final two blue columns. And we see in all three bar charts the disparity between white folks and Indigenous folks is quite stark. But I really like to look at these final two bars in the chart, to look within our own community to say, here are these disparities. How can we help to close these gaps within our own community? Because inevitably, when we can help close these gaps within our own community, it will help close the gap between that dark blue bar and the red bar representing, broader populations. And so this is important data, I think, for us to look at. And I'm super curious about what it would look like today. We'll figure this out eventually, and I have some exciting, eventual news about data improving. The Tribal Advisory Committee for the U.S. Department of Treasury is currently working on a set of proposed improvements to how the government looks and how we regulate and administer tribal plans, both governmental and enterprise. But one of the recommendations that the committee is putting forth is some recommended methodology on collecting plan data for tribal plans. And tribes and tribal HR folks are gonna have direct input into reporting this information. So it's great that we're going to have better information eventually, and that will be represented not only in the data, but in the collection of it. So very cool eventually, right? But, we'll get there. But I want to come back to data in a minute. But before I do, Wes, I want to ask you, have you ever heard of the 7th generation principle?
I have not, actually.
Well, you might be familiar with, a brand of ecologically conscious cleaning products that has some scratchy TP, but they take their name from an Indigenous ethos that's described as the 7th generation principle. It was initially recorded with the Great Law of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, or the Iroquois Confederacy. And the Great Law, as you might recall from your American history classes, inspired some of the tenets of American democracy. But what the 7th generation principle essentially describes is a way of making decisions, typically in the modern sense, around food sources, water sources, natural resources, and protected wildland areas, making decisions knowing that those decisions are going to have impacts and consequences for the next 7 generations. And so how can we make decisions today with 7 generations down the road? And this type of long-term planning I think is also applicable to retirement plans. generations. So when I try to think about how 7 generations fits into the world of retirement plans, I'm struck by a specific investment strategy called a managed account. So when I started with retirement plans, Wes, I had no idea what managed accounts were. So in the most basic terms, in case folks here aren't familiar, can you describe what a managed account is?
Yes, most definitely. So in a very simplistic way of putting it, a managed account is a individual investment account that's owned by the participant, or also known as like as an employee or the employee, that's ultimately managed by an investment professional. When it comes to the map, that investment professional would be LeafHouse.
Okay, awesome. So I'm really familiar with target date funds as a really popular investment solution for retirement plans, where people based on their age and when they expect to retire can enter a target date fund, which has a set of underlying funds beneath it. And as that person travels through time, that target date fund reduces their risk profile as they get closer to retirement, which seems really cool and like automatic. But how are target date funds different from managed account programs?
Yeah, most definitely. So just for some potential historical context, in 2006, the Pension Protection Act was passed. And in that act, what it required was any retirement plan had to have a default investment, that if the participant or again the employee didn't elect to opt out of the retirement plan, that after a defined window, usually 30 days, they are automatically enrolled in whatever is set as the default investment, also known as the QDIA. Those 3 options in that act were the target date, which is again widely adopted in the industry and certainly the most widely used over the last 25 years. The other one is an allocation fund. A lot of people understand that to be a risk profile or a kind of a risk questionnaire that participants or again employees will go through. And then lastly was a managed account. So to bring it back to the question, what's the difference between the two? So a target date is very much a one-size-fits-all approach to retirement planning. It's easy to understand, it's easy to explain, it's kind of a set it and forget it mentality. But while it has lots of strengths, it also has lots of assumptions built into it because it ultimately treats every participant the exact same. So every 25-year-old will be treated the same, and every 40-year-old will be treated the same in the sense of the way their portfolios are adjusted as they get closer to retirement. When it comes to a managed account, it is a very holistic approach. So it considers multiple aspects about an individual, and it is personalized to them. All managed accounts in the industry are a little bit different. Some will consider 5 or 6 individual data points about a participant. Where it comes to LeafHouse's managed account, as you can see and is illustrated on the screen currently, ours will naturally take or automatically take 10 data points, which are the ones that are listed in black, and create unique portfolios or unique retirement plans for every participant. And so those portfolios, are built specifically for those individuals around their unique lifestyle and retirement needs. Now, not to dive in too deep, because we're going to cover this a little bit more here in a second, but at the very bottom, you'll see 2 red pieces are highlighted in red. Those are additional information. So we've built our managed account to be an automated process in the case that the participant doesn't engage, that it'll still naturally create those portfolios. But what we want is we want them to go in there and provide us more information. And ours, even though it grabs 10 automatically, will actually take up to 30 unique data points. And so the more you feed it, the more personalized it becomes.
Awesome. So if I'm understanding correctly how it works, it's taking all of this individual information, and instead of just applying age to help someone understand how they should save, and how much they should save. It's using all of this information to create a really customized strategy. Is that correct?
Yeah. Very I can break it down maybe in a very simplistic way. You defined it perfectly. So managed accounts will use a select group of funds, ultimately package those together, and then create investment portfolios or plans for the individuals. And then the separators or the differentiators between managed account providers is how personalized those portfolios can be created for each individual.
This is awesome. And definitely as I learned more about managed account programs compared to target date funds, I thought, holy cow, these are really powerful. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the data that we have that backs up the effectiveness of managed accounts. Can you help us translate some of these statistics?
100%. So I have to start with the sense that I have a prudent responsibility as a fiduciary to state that there are no guarantees when it comes to investments and certainly the performance of different investment options. But we have been tracking, especially as managed accounts have become more widely adopted, we have been tracking that data. And as it's illustrated on the screen, managed accounts are trending towards having about a 50% higher savings rate, 63% more consistent returns, and then 23% more income in retirement. Now, there's also another add-on to this conversation, which is that 338 investment fiduciary responsibility, which irrespectively, anyone that offers a retirement plan has that fiduciary responsibility. And if it's not outsourced, it's on the business owner, also known as the plan sponsor. So we serve in that capacity as a 338. And as we know, in the kind of last, I think 12 to 13 years, we're finally experiencing a down market. And so certainly as a investment fiduciary, we've been tracking that. And, just a few weeks ago, the market was down around 20%. And our customers that have outsourced that 338 investment fiduciary, so we oversee the funds that are utilized in each plan, our 338 coverage was down about 8%. Now, why that's applicable to this conversation is when we are also hired not only to provide a managed account, but also to provide that 338 coverage, that is naturally embedded into that managed account. So while we're not a hyper conservative 338 provider, we still have that downside protection, not only built into our 338 service, but also into the managed account that participants ultimately are going to utilize.
Fantastic. These are really powerful numbers. And I think that they back up what Fidelity's data shows, that engaging in a retirement planning process significantly boosts outcomes. And the trends are showing that boomers are moving solidly into retirement. The oldest Gen Xers are about 5 years from retiring. Elder millennials, or sometimes zennials as they may be called, are earning their peak earning years currently. And then we have Gen Z, or next gens, knowing that they have time and they do not want to make the same mistakes that their older counterparts have made. So we've heard a little bit about how managed account programs can be customized. How is this customization playing out across generational groups?
Yeah, great question. So the trend of adoption on the managed account side really started to pick up pace around 2019, and we're going to talk about some of those historical reluctances here in a second. But we certainly track trends. As a tech company that serves the retirement space, it's important that we are providing solutions for the upcoming demands of the retirement space. And one key aspect is personalization. So personalization has impacted all of our lives. Is simply down as ordering a cup of coffee. So irrespective of your favorite bistro you walk into, and a coffee can be made just the way you want it with all the possible ingredients you want. But in the retirement space, the adoption of personalization has been slower. that certainly, like we talked about, is changing. And now when you go into the generational impact, I'm just going to talk about the Gen Zs, but in this trend, 97% of Gen Zs are comfortable sharing personalized information about themselves with their employer for a personalized return. So those Gen Zs are the next retirement savers, and everyone after them are going to be more accustomed to having every aspect of their life being personalized to them. And there is no better default investment option right now that can be put on a retirement plan that solves this need than a managed account.
Awesome. Listen, my niece is constantly bugging me to get her some customized Nikes. So I hear you. It's not only the trend, but it's now the best practice. And I am sold. Now, I have talked with a lot of advisors and employers about managed account programs, and some of them have challenged me on them. Can I present some of these objections to you? And you can tell me how iJoin, LeafHouse's technology with iJoin can help solve some of these issues.
100%, yes, please, I'd be happy to.
Okay, so these are some of the primary challenges that I come across with managed accounts, and I also want to address some special considerations for tribal plans. So diving in, the number one objection I hear is that participants are confused about investments. A lot of times a plan has a set of investments, the core lineup for the plan, and then there's another set of investments for those people that want to participate in the managed account. And a lot of people are just so overwhelmed by this that they do nothing. So how can you help with that overwhelm to reduce it so that people can help make a better decision about their investments?
Yeah, there's two pieces that kind of are intertwined in that question. So certainly understand the confusion when it comes to advisors, and even more so when it comes in broken down to that individual participant. And I would start with proactive participation. So historical managed accounts require the participant to be active in that managed account, especially in the early adoption phase. So they had to go in and provide information, in terms of who they were, their age, where they lived. They also had to help, in what you alluded to, on the funds that would be utilized inside the managed account. So again, some historical kind of the initial rollout of managed accounts, what would happen was on one side for the managed account, you would have a fund lineup, and then the plan would also have a separate lineup. And so when the participant adopted or enrolled into the managed account, there would be two separate fund lineups that were necessarily looked at. And again, on a plan sponsor standpoint, on a participant standpoint, which funds are going to be used for what, who has the responsibility for managing those funds in each of those lines and each of those lineups. So it was very confusing for the everyday investor or participant to understand exactly what they were enrolling into, how much to put in the large cap option, how much to put in the small, how much to put in the blended option. And so again, one thing that was a huge goal of ours was to solve both of those obstacles. One, our managed account does not require any proactive participation from the participant or the investor. So we've built it for two types. This is kind of the most simplistic way I can put this. So one is that participant, that is the majority of most people in retirement plans, to be honest, that doesn't ever go into their retirement plan, irrespective of what kind it is, and enroll. They just get defaulted into that default investment at the end of the 30-day opt-in, opt-out period. So with our managed account, like I illustrated earlier, we are going to capture 10 data points from them. So whether they go in or not, if it's set as the default option after 30 days, they're enrolled into that managed account, and it actually automatically updates every quarter based on their date of birth with any lifestyle changes that happen within those 10 data points. So for example, if they got an increase in their salary, so let's say they were making $50,000 a year and they got an increase and now they're making 75. Well, that's going to alter that allocation that we built for them. So instead of them having to go back into their into the user experience or the portal that they manage their retirement in, we actually grab that information automatically. So they're not forced to go in there and update it. So with that, each quarter based on their date of birth, if they have lifestyle changes, it automatically updates and reallocates until they retire. It's an incredible technology. The other person we built it for is like, again, the one I alluded to earlier, which is the one that is active, the one that wants to give additional information, that wants to go in there and maybe link outside assets or add their spousal information or change their defined contribution rate because they've been in retirement for a while and they've been saving for a while, so they have a little bit more sophistication. And so with that, we saw proactive participation because it doesn't require it. Once it's established, it never requires human interaction again. The other piece, which is the first question you asked here, was we use one lineup instead of multiple. So the plan sponsor will work with their advisor, and also if we're serving as the 338, we'll work together to select the funds that are utilized for the plan, and then that plan's lineup is ultimately what the reallocate IT technology, that managed account technology we talked about earlier, we pull from that fund lineup to create those unique allocations for the participant.
So I'm understanding correctly, you have one lineup for the plan, and from this one lineup, you are building the managed account portfolios. So there's participants see the exact same mutual funds.
Correct. And a really cool piece about our technology is, unlike, at least to my knowledge, and it's my job to know this, there is, if you had a business of 200 employees, all 200 would have a unique allocation. There is no other managed account like that right now in the market that allows this level of personalization.
Whoa, cool. Okay, that's a great solution. Here's objection number 2. There's a lot of managed account programs that are out there. And people tend to know their numbers. A lot of people know their credit score. Some people might know their cholesterol or their blood pressure. But a lot of people don't have any idea how much money they should have saved by the time that they enter retirement. How does the iJoin technology help solve for this?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And it goes a little bit beyond just iJoin. And I say that in the sense of, I think if you talk to most business owners, advisors, individuals that sit in the retirement space like yourself and I, greater engagement from the participant is a goal from everyone. We need more people saving for retirement. We need more people engaged in their retirement plan. And in order for us to help do this, it requires a certain level of interaction or effort from that participant. And we're going to drive information to through the iJoin portal, emails, educational collateral from NWPS into the plan sponsor that ultimately gets back to the employee. But ultimately, we need a little bit of effort from them, and it's a goal of the industry to solve this. Now, on the iJoin side of this, if we can get them to get into that user experience, it really helps guide and speak to every level of understanding of retirement that participant might understand. And what I mean by that is, again, it's my job to know this, and I have a really good understanding of what all of our competitors' user experiences look like. And I think iJoin has created this incredible user experience or participant experience that speaks directly to the end user. And what I mean by that is, if it's a 25-year-old and this is their first retirement plan they've ever had before, they might not know what employer optimization match means. They might not know what defined contribution rate is. They might not even know what an outside asset means. So what they need to do is they need to be able to go in there, enroll into their retirement plan, and have it be in a time point where they don't lose interest. And what I mean by that is, some of our competitors, their enrolling experience is like 20 minutes. and it just takes too long. And what happens is participants lose interest and they just don't finish. And so with iJoin, you can be fully enrolled into the managed account in less than 5 minutes. It's incredible what they've built. Now,
Wow.
we also have these individuals who are very sophisticated. They understand what defined contribution rate looks like. They understand how to link outside assets. They understand the importance of adding additional information. So if it's a 55-year-old, a 60-year-old, the number's arbitrary, they're going to be able to go in there and add information. Well, within the iJoin system on top of that, it's going to give them recommendations. So if they're not on track to hit retirement, iJoin system will help guide them saying, hey, have you considered, instead of retiring at 65, maybe retire at 66 because it's your cash, what you're going to need in terms of a monthly income. Now you have an additional year of retirement savings. It might tell them or recommend they save $500 more a month to help them get on track. There's going to be all of these recommendations that are built into it. And the iJoin system is, for the lack of better words, gamified. And so you can play with this system while you're in there and not have to adopt what you're doing. So you can change defined contribution rate, and you'll see how it adjusts your on track, where you are in terms of on track for retirement. And if you don't like it, you can just change it right back. So it's really cool in terms of how it helps guide that participant or that employee on their track to retirement.
Love it. So important for people to be able to visualize not only what your retirement looks like, what you're doing in it, but also have a way to project that income in a real way. So that's cool. Third major objection: managed account programs used to be pretty expensive. In my experience, as I've come across other managed account programs, I've seen them cost anywhere from an additional 30 to 100 basis points in addition to, base plan fees. And, if those fees are considerable, the impacts of those fees could potentially outweigh the returns for folks in a managed account. So how are you helping to address this cost issue? What's changing?
It is a fantastic question. And I say that in the sense from the participant's perspective, this was the #1 reluctance to adopting a managed account in the last 2 decades. They were, like you outlined already, Kira, they were incredibly expensive, and there wasn't enough data to back up anything to say they were worth, in terms of returns, the additional cost. And through the efforts of firms like yours, Kira, LeafHouse, iJoin, we believe in personalization. Probably bigger than that, we all believe, which is why we're all strategic partners with one another, that everyone should have access to managed money, irrespective of how much money you make or the type of job you have. So this gives personalization to the masses. Everyone can have a personalized retirement plan, frankly, not just the rich. So we wanted to come in and tackle this obstacle, and we also believe that the managed account should be the widely adopted default investment option, or again, that QDIA over a target date, because of the personalization it brings to each participant, that it's creating these unique portfolios. But in order for us to have it set as the QDIA or the default investment and have it be widely adopted, it had to be price competitive to a target date. It had to be a little bit less, a little bit more, or the same as a traditional target date. Or what will happen is it'll just always get utilized as an opt-in feature. And with those participants that never go into it, they're just going to get defaulted into something else. So it was important to LeafHouse, iJoin, NWPS to come in and roll this to market at a price point, again, that solved that historical reluctance. So our price point is right around 6 basis points, which would include LeafHouse's fee, iJoin's fee, and then there's around another basis point, Kier, correct me if I'm wrong here, from NWPS. So with that, all in on the managed account, you're right around 7 basis points, which is 6 to 10 times less than the industry standard. And again, in no way we're all LeafHouse, I joined NWPS. We're all industry leaders in our individual sectors within the retirement space. We are by no means aiming to be the low-cost providers. We came in to change the industry because we truly believe this is in the best interest of the participant, and we want to deliver a product that's going to better prepare them for retirement.
I love this. And if I'm one of the people on the call today that has a traditional ERISA 401k plan, I'm probably thinking, this is awesome. If I don't have this, let's do this. But if I have a tribal plan that is maybe governmental or non-ERISA, I might be thinking this is cool, but there may be some additional wrinkles where, you know, that could complicate how cool this service is. So let's put one more shameless plug into this deck. My sister's also a beadwork artist, and I want to harken back to the pretend Minneshanka Nation from Rutherford Falls, because you know, they're a reservation that's next to a city. So we have tribal and non-tribal folks moving together through the community, and so I want to talk a little bit about Simply Special, unique to tribal plans, which are miners' trust plans. And NWPS, as a retirement plan record keeper, is unique in that we can also administer miners' trust plans alongside tribal plans, which not a lot of other record keepers can do. And so one of the things I'm thinking is, you know, what about those miners' trust accounts and the money that's in those miners' trust accounts? Is it possible for that information to feed into the planning tool and be one of those data points that helps a person create their customized retirement plan?
Yes, 100%.
Wow, that's so great. That's super, super cool. You know, and I love managed accounts because they remind me of Robin Hall Kelleher's book, Braiding Sweetgrass. If you haven't read it, a fantastic book. But in it, she describes many, many examples of our Indigenous ancestors and how they cultivated wildlands in order to maximize the abundance of certain resources, food or materials. They noticed the reciprocity between plants and animals in certain areas and maximize that in order to increase that abundance of that resource, in order to maintain it for hundreds or thousands of years as a reliable source for food or for materials. And to me, managed accounts feel like this in the sense that it's an intentional setting of an intentional planning and putting a plan in place and having it maintained for you so that it can increase your personal abundance. Because I think it's important for us to look at money as an energy source. And I think that helps some people get around some of the emotional hangups they have with money. If we look at money like it's as you look at like the gas in your tank, you know, we're all looking for strategies on how to use less gas these days. How can we look at the money in our retirement plan in the same way and find tools to maximize those savings so that we can eventually increase abundance for individuals and families and communities in the long term? Can I go back to the data thing really quick before we wrap up, Wes? Because I know we're coming up close on time and I want to, we may have time for one question. I just want to come back to the data thing really quick, because while we do have issues, you know, with institutional data sets, The great thing about some of the technology that you can put in place for your retirement plan right now is that you can mine your retirement plan for your own data. So we'll have to wait a little bit for, you know, larger data to come in, but in the meantime, you can take a really close look at your own plan to determine how are folks doing in your plan. Is your plan solely tribal? Do you have only tribal members? Do you have tribal and non-tribal members? Within your tribal subset, what's retirement readiness looking like for those folks? And can you put any special or strategic initiatives in place in order to boost that engagement that we talked about with some of those people? So while we have to wait a little bit for better institutional data, we can start with our data in-house, and this technology through iJoin gives us fantastic visibility into it. So what's next, right? Okay, so you're probably thinking, what are the investments in my plan? How can I find out if I have managed accounts? Let us help. So what we can do for you, if you manage a retirement plan, NWPS can provide a full review of your plan. We can take a look at a few of your plan documents, a few of your fee disclosures, and see what kind of services you're receiving and the fees at which you are receiving those services. We want to provide you some context of, you know, what our services are like compared to your current services and other services in the market. And then Wes and the LeafHouse team are also able to help. Wes, how are you able to help with this sort of with this review or this look back?
Yeah, so we're very happy to provide a free investment review of everyone's existing plan lineups. We can do a expense ratio comparison. So we might be able to save a little bit money on the underlying expense ratio. And also we'll run it through our methodology and see how they're performing based on our GPA.
Love it, love it. So I will be in touch with you. I will be following up with each of you that has joined the call today in order to be offering this review. I'd love to learn more about you and your plan and how we can help you achieve better outcomes for your plan participants and your tribal members. My hope is that by employing managed account programs that we're able to help our Indigenous relatives save just a little bit more. And even in saving just 1% more on those bar graphs, is going to help our elders be more engaged in community, worry less about meeting their meeting their basic needs, and be able to contribute to the community and their families in a really healthy way. So we're very close to we're at the top of the hour. We'll address your questions individually. Janet.
Hi, it was amazing. I wanted to ask you, and I thank you for the generous offer to be able to do a full review of our plans, regardless if we're in the casino or in tribal government. Could you give us your email in regards to us reaching out to you? I love the presentation. I love the data. Could you include it in the chat box so we can reach out to you to get that full review of our investment?
Okay, my email is in the chat. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and my email and phone number is also on LinkedIn. If you're going to be at the market in Santa Fe, you can look for my sister Jana. She and some of the cast members are gonna be hanging out there. So otherwise, I really hope I get to meet some of you folks at the upcoming conference.
Thank you so much. Yes, like Kirsten said, she is going to be at the San Antonio conference in September. So if you have not registered for the conference, please go to www.nnahra.org. We are selling on entries pretty rapidly, so I just don't want you to miss this opportunity to attend this awesome conference and be able to make Kirsten. Want to thank you all. If there aren't any comments or any questions that you may have, I wanted to thank you, Kirsten and Wes, for your time. Learned a lot, very exciting, and everything that you're doing for Native tribes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate the platform and look forward to working with you more in the future.
Agreed. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.